Do you ever feel like you have so many things going on in your life that you can't take a breath? I know I do. Hi, class. My name is Katherine Carson, and I'm going to be covering Chapter 7, which deals with managing stress and the work-life balance. Covering this chapter is so appropriate for me right now because I'm in my busiest season at work of the entire year. I'm the communications director for the Baptist State Convention of North Carolina, and I'm leaving this coming Sunday to be the producer of our big annual meeting. And this is the time of year that all of the Baptist churches in North Carolina come together for 2 days of worship and Bible teaching, and it's when we do our annual business meetings. And I manage the team that's responsible for all the media for this event. So it's been a very hectic several months, and the culmination of all of our work will show up in the form of videos, slides, graphics, that kind of thing at the actual event. And so it's an intense time for us, for all of us. And like you, I'm in the process of going to graduate school on top of that. So it is so ironic that I'm presenting this chapter because stress is certainly what I'm feeling right now. Stress is defined as the adaptive response that we give to any stimulus that causes excessive psychological or physical demands. I know that we can all relate to this feeling, and the book explains that we each adapt in several ways to these different stimulus that we encounter, and we each handle stress differently. In other words, some of you may be really able to tolerate higher levels of stress than others. In this presentation, I'm going to briefly discuss the process of stress, the individual differences of stress, some common causes and consequences of stress, and how we can better manage stress. According to what's called the general adaptation syndrome, this process of stress includes alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. So at the alarm stage, there's this initial sense of panic and how are we going to cope or how are we going to deal. The individual will then decide if they want to take on the challenge or the potential cause of the stress, and then they'll determine how to resist the potential negative effects that the stressor can bring. If there's a prolonged stress, this could lead to stage 3, which is considered exhaustion. For me, exhaustion will hit after I finish next week with the annual meeting that I mentioned earlier. It happens every year. This is my 10th year of producing the annual meeting, and I get done with all of the work, and then I get home and kind of get in my comfort zone or my place of rest, and I crash. So next we're going to look at our individual differences to stress because each of us handle different levels of stress in different ways. And the book suggested 2 different distinctive personality profiles that handle stress differently. And these are type A and type B personalities. Type A personalities are extremely competitive, they're highly committed to work, and have a strong sense of urgency. Type B personalities are less competitive, they're less committed to work, and they have a weaker sense of time urgency. I'll admit I'm a classic type A, but as the book points out, we can all exhibit both types of traits in different settings, and I am able to occasionally forget about all the stress and give myself some time to relax. In fact, I'm looking forward to a chance to do that really soon. Hardiness and optimism are 2 other differences that individuals may exhibit in dealing with stress. Hardiness refers to a person's ability to cope with stress. This means that they may be able to deal with properly with stress and be less negatively affected by it. Optimism is the extent to which a person sees life in relatively positive or negative terms. Optimistic people tend to handle stress better because they can see the positive characteristics related to the difficulty, and this helps them to get through it a little easier. There are many things that cause us each stress. These stressors can be in the form of our work or even our personal lives, and many times they're interconnected and related. Organizational stressors are found in the workplace and include things like job-related tasks, physical demands, and things that need high energy or high motivation. Organizational stressors can also come from some of the things we deal with in our roles. These are called role demands, and they're expected behaviors that may come with the position. Interpersonal demands on the job are also another form of an organizational stressor. They manifest in the form of like group pressure or leadership demands or management demands. And also a really big one is personality conflicts that can add to stress in the organization. There's also life stressors, and that also leads to an overall high stress level. Life stressors are things in our personal life that cause life or could be like life change or life trauma. Life change is any meaningful change in a person's life, like their work or personal life. And life trauma is an upheaval in an individual's life that totally alters one's attitude, emotions, or behaviors. There are many individual as well as organizational consequences associated with prolonged stress. Many of the consequences that come from stress are interrelated, and some of the consequences are associated with the individual. They can lead to behavioral, psychological, as well as medical consequences. Behavioral consequences include things that have negative consequences on the individual, and these could manifest in the form of smoking or alcohol or drug abuse, even overeating. They're just unhealthy coping mechanisms. Psychological consequences refer to a person's mental health, their stability, their well-being. And then medical consequences, of course, refer to the physical health. Sometimes this can manifest in the form of heart disease, stroke, stomach ulcers, things of that nature. For me, I can really tell when I've had a tremendous amount of stress. My overall well-being and just the way I feel physically, I don't feel at peace or at rest. It can be hard to get a good night's rest when there's too much stress in my life. And I can't get the rest that I need to really physically perform and feel well. These individual stressors can also affect us in our jobs as well as the organization we work in. Decline in our performance or total withdrawal from the organization in the form of absenteeism or even leaving the organization for good. An attitude may also develop if there's like a prolonged stress, and an attitude may present itself through the form of dread or complaints about the job, just a constant attitude about the job itself. Burnout is also a consequence of stress, which is the general feeling of exhaustion that may come from the prolonged stress or pressure without sources of satisfaction. And burnout is one of those things we need to avoid because it can really be detrimental. With so many negative consequences, we must find ways to properly manage and cope with the stress that's in our lives, both professionally and individually, if we're going to remain satisfied, challenged, and live a healthy life. There are many methods for managing stress, and some basic coping or managing tools include exercise, relaxation, time management, and that one is really key for me. This includes things like list making and prioritizing your day in order to accomplish your tasks. There's also role management. This includes avoiding overload or a misunderstanding of the expectations for the role. So managing your role in order to understand what is expected, and this will free you up to do your job well without spending too much time worrying about what it is you should be doing. Some organizations offer institutional support for the management of stress. So you may work for an organization that offers something like a gym membership or a spa package or flexible schedules. If you work for an organization that truly values a healthy work-life balance, then you're very blessed. I personally work for an organization that values the family, and they understand the importance of moms and dads being home with their families. We work 37.5-hour weeks, and we have pretty flexible schedules with a good vacation package, emergency leave, that kind of thing. And the office is always very open to time needed with the family. And so I would consider my organization to have a pretty healthy work-life balance. It offers families the time that they need to reconnect and relax and deal with stress. There are many ways in managing stress, but the most important thing is to keep our minds focused on Jesus. And as his word says, cast all our cares at his feet and come to him in prayer and supplication with no anxiety. This is truly how Christians can manage anything that the world throws our way. I'm really interested in finding out how you manage stress. So please respond to the discussion board with your coping methods, and thank you so much for letting me spend this time sharing with you.